Hey there, entrepreneurs, and welcome to today's show. We have such a fantastic conversation coming at you today. I am here with Chanel Dokun, who is a certified life planner and relationship expert trained in marriage and family therapy. She specializes in helping women step into their life's true calling through her Women of Consequence life planning organization. Prior to running her own business and co-founding a seven-figure practice, Healthy Minds NYC, she worked in publishing at Hearst magazines. She now splits her time between New York City and Atlanta with her psychiatrist husband and her son, who is very cute, folks. Props to you on that, Chanel.
Yes.
She's writing, and she has writings and contributions that have appeared in amazing publications such as the New York Times, Real Simple, Women's Day, and so many more. But most importantly, a huge congratulations to her, because by the time this episode airs, your new book, Life Starts Now: How to Create the Life You've Been Waiting For, will be out in the world. So congratulations and welcome to the
Thank
show.
you. Thank you so much. Oh, what a warm welcome. And yeah, I cannot believe that you actually just got to say that last sentence that the book will be out in the world.
I
I'm so
know.
pumped.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm really excited for you. I can't wait for women to kind of learn all of your wisdom and everything that you've going to put into this book. And I'm excited to have this teaser here on the podcast. So let's jump in. So I want to talk about and set the stage a little bit for your book, because you say that you spent the first half of your life focusing on achieving and attaining a certain lifestyle, which I think many of us, myself included, can relate to. And then all of a sudden you were like, wait a minute, something isn't quite right here. So can you
Right.
tell us about kind of that period of your life?
Yes. So I have this little thing that I say in the book that I call it drowning in shallow water, right? And this idea that life looks really good on the outside and you've achieved all the things or seemingly achieved all the things. And inside, you're like, oh my goodness, I'm drowning. This is not working out for me. And so for me, I think there was a pivotal moment where I was standing in the middle of Rockefeller Center. I had finally achieved my dream of working in magazine publishing. It was awesome. I was working for House Beautiful, and we'd built a life-size kitchen right where they put the Christmas tree every year. And 350,000 people pass through Rock Center every day. And so all of these folks were, tourists were going by and they were looking like, oh my goodness, who are these people behind the velvet robes? And I remember standing there and I had the thought of, I've made it. I'm here in terms of I'm doing the job, not so much that people are looking at me, but the idea that I'm doing the job I long to do. I had great relationships. I was connected to a great spiritual community. I'd made friends. I felt like good in my own skin and my body and all those things that, you kind of are striving for in your 20s, what you think your life will be like by the time you hit 30. And I'd done it. And that thought was immediately followed by, oh my goodness, this is so unfulfilling. And I realized that I wasn't actually alive. Like I wasn't fully firing on all cylinders. And I think that I was living very much a should life and living by what seemed like it should have been my, pursuit of success or what significance looked like. And inside, I felt a little empty. And so that's really what sent me on my journey, is trying to find out, what does it mean to live a more meaningful life, both for me and for other people? What does that actually look like? And how do you practically step into a life of purpose?
Yeah, I like the fact that you said practically, right? Because I
Yeah.
think what you just described, I have been in similar situations where all of a sudden you're like, wait a minute, my entire life is orchestrated in such a way that if I step to the right or the left of that view, of that vision, something's going to unravel. So it has to be practical, and it has to be a thing that will not, kick off a set of dominoes that'll undo everything in a major way, right? So I'd
Right.
assume, tell us more about that.
Yeah. So I think you're right. I think it's, how do I do something that's practical, both in the sense of how do I not disrupt, every single part of my life, though in some cases that might be necessary. Some of us need a massive disruption,
Yeah.
right? In other cases, I think that the practicality is necessary because when we talk about life purpose, it can become this really like wooey, like
Yes.
esoteric conversation that's very vague.
Mm-hmm.
And we feel really good about talking about it. Like
Yeah.
we're talking about important things, but nothing's actually changed. And so for me, I was like, I don't want to just think about like what a more meaningful life is. I want to step into it.
Mhm.
And that started with me starting to pay attention to who am I? How
Yeah.
have I been uniquely created? Like, what's my identity outside of what anybody else's looks like?
Yeah.
What do I really, really want? And where am I headed? Like, what's the big direction of my life? And then starting to say, okay, here's how I move into that in these kind of mini steps in every different bucket of my life. So it wasn't for me, it wasn't just career either. It was a lot of different things that I had to evaluate.
Yeah. And how did you stay from being overwhelmed during that? Because, like you just said, every area of your life, and as women, we have so many kind of labels in so many different areas of our
Mhm.
lives that we walk through.
Yeah. I think part of that starts by really what's embedded in what I call my life planning process now. And it's the idea that when you look at all things together, you can have a lot more confidence about the individual steps that you're taking because you're confident that it's not going to disrupt the other thing. I know that the choice I'm making for my career actually is in alignment with my long-term family goals.
Yeah.
You know, the choices that I'm making for, you know, what kind of spiritual rhythms do I maintain in my life? Those things are actually supportive of the relationships that I'm trying to develop. So I do think it was interesting because you're right. I think when you look at everything at once, there is a temptation for that to, or a possibility that that could feel overwhelming.
Yeah.
For me, I felt the reverse. And I find that most of my clients actually feel the reverse as well, where it's like a breath of fresh air of finally, I'm looking at all these things that I care about and
Yeah.
I'm honoring all of them at the same time.
Yeah. It's like, it must be a sense of almost like integration, finally.
Yes.
Right. Like
Yes.
you're finally like, oh, I can show up. I say this a lot with leaders, right? Showing up with all of your pieces integrated to work, or all of your
Right.
pieces here or there. Right. And you can actually step into them, and there should, and that's how it kind of should feel, right? Like that you don't have to put on, because you and I both done that, where we put on the work mask, you put on the mom mask, you
Yes.
put on this mask, and it's fucking exhausting. I always
Absolutely.
like,
Absolutely.
you know. So why do you think so many women are doing this, are kind of, because you are one of many that I know have had that aha, like what the heck is going on here moment. Like why is that happening?
Yeah, I think we are fundamentally disconnected from our authentic selves. And I know, you know, that sounds like a bold statement maybe to make, but I feel like we spend so much of our lives being externally formed, right?
Yeah.
We're looking at external reference points for how we should live. So I look at what I see on social media, I look at what I see on television, I look at family and friends, I try to follow my family's script,
Yeah.
all of these other things that have defined for us what success and what significance looks like. And so when we think, I want to live an extraordinary life, we start trying to figure out, well, how can I measure up to what somebody else has set as the standard?
Mhm.
And I think it's the kind of pathway out of that is starting to go, oh my goodness, I need to actually tune back in to who I am and what I really want, absent of anyone else's influence.
Yes, I love that, absent of anyone else's influence, because that's a hard thing, especially if you are a caretaker, right? And
Yes.
you're walking through it every single day. I mean, we are immersed in other people's influences, I think, on the
Yes.
daily, right? So, I think as women, that quiet time, or even just the permission to ask yourself, must be pretty revolutionary to quite a few women that you've spoken to, right?
Yeah. I think that when I tell a woman that she has permission to be ordinary, there is usually like a breath or a sigh of relief, right? This idea that I can stop performing. And oh my goodness, what would it be like for me to just wake up tomorrow and be who I am and not feel bad about that and actually feel really fulfilled in my own skin? That would be a revolutionary concept.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think that that release is necessary, that we need to get rid of that external influence for sure.
Yeah. And I mean, I imagine many of them, as we've spoken about, kind of wake up and they don't even know who they are,
Yeah.
right? Like you don't, it's almost like I've, who was I listening to the other day that was saying, like, you have to find that core thing that you liked when you were a child, right? Like go
Right.
way back, right? And find that thing that lit you up. But then the other woman who was on the conversation said, I don't even know if I knew what that was. I came out of the womb like
Yeah.
pleasing and performing and doing all of those things. So, I mean, how do you recommend like those first steps beyond kind of what you've described so far to unravel it?
Yeah. Yeah. I have a little challenge in the book where I'll tell a woman a really great sign of whether or not you're connected to your own voice is if I ask you the question, or if I prompt you to make a list of 25 things that you love, are you able to do it? Right. And sometimes it's like people are like, yeah, totally. And they like totally tap out after about 4 or 5.
Yeah.
I don't know
Yeah.
what I love after that. Right. And so they're so disconnected from themselves. And so because it is the problem is that I don't know who I am. I don't recognize my own voice. I can't see myself. Then our solution has to be something that involves you sitting and paying attention and noticing yourself. So for me, the really practical first step that I have for all of my clients is to start like a reclaim the morning practice, is what I call it, my kind of
Yeah.
fancy title
Love it.
for
Yeah.
that daily time alone. I love saying reclaim. It gives off big Maxine Waters energy of like, I'm reclaiming my time. Yes, please.
Yeah.
This is my life.
Yeah.
But I love this idea that every day I could actually start my day in my own voice, that
Yeah.
I don't have to immediately pay attention to the influence of what everybody else wants and needs from me or thinks I should be doing. But I get to just hear, like, what does Chanel want? What does Michelle want? Like, right, right.
Yeah.
And when you start to notice yourself day after day on the page and you kind of spend this time, it becomes a lot easier to then track, oh, I think I consistently love this.
Yeah.
I think I'm drawn to this.
Yeah.
So that knowing of self starts to increase over time for sure.
Right. And I mean, I would imagine like I'm thinking of our mutual friend, Catherine Price, in
Yes.
her
Oh, love
dealing with
her.
dealing with fun and everything there too. And I remember her moment of just sitting on the couch, like, I have free time and I don't even know what I like. And I don't even know how to
Yes,
even proceed here. So
absolutely.
I absolutely love that activity. And I imagine it doesn't have to be like a half hour every morning. You can start small, right?
Right.
So it doesn't feel awkward. And I know what that feeling is with kids and husbands beating down the door in the
Oh my
morning.
goodness. Yes.
So,
This is an area where I always say like progress is better than perfection. I think it is a hard thing to do. We literally had to create, because we know with everyone reading the book, a lot of people would like to start that practice. So we actually created a course so they could start to implement it. And one of the things that we said is exactly what you shared is, how do I start small? How do I do 5 minutes a day, 10 minutes a day,
yeah.
10 minutes every other day just to get going? Because it might be such a foreign concept to how I've operated in my life that I have to wedge it in for a little
Right.
while.
Yeah. And I imagine like once you start to kind of open that box, and I'm speaking a little bit from personal experience as well, it's like
Mhm.
once I opened that box, there was a range of emotions that
Yes.
came out with that. Like there still is on the daily. Sometimes I'm like, oh, what the fuck? Like,
Yes.
like
Yes. Uh-huh.
at society, at my husband, whoever. But how can women step through that? I mean, I imagine like starting small is a good approach to that too, right? To kind
Yeah.
of tame your emotion side when you come into that, right?
Yeah, I think to give yourself permission of, these things have always been there, right? These aren't actually new emotions. They've always been sitting beneath
Mhm.
the surface. And what I'm doing now is I'm seeing it. I'm seeing the crap for what it is, right? Or maybe I'm seeing the good.
Yeah.
Hopefully, I hope you have some
Yeah.
good there too,
Hopefully. Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Of course.
But I've had a client, I'll never forget, one of my life planning clients. We did her 2-day intensive retreat. And then one of the things out of that was she was going to start reclaiming the morning. And she did. And then she called me up and she said, Chanel, I have to pause because I'm so terrified to see myself as this angry person. Oh my goodness, I didn't realize I was so angry. And I don't like seeing that.
Yeah.
And I kind of laughed because that's part of the reason why I'd asked her to do it, is because she was so angry and she couldn't
You didn't
recognize
know
her
where to
own
put it.
anger,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? That was an emotion that wasn't allowed in her family and it wasn't right. And so she actually then had to deal with that. And I said, well, you know what? That's okay. So you're angry. Let's accept that you've always been angry or have been angry for quite some time. Now, what do we do with the anger? And so she was also in therapy at the same time, which I recommend for a lot of my clients. And that was so helpful because she could then take that language of anger back to
Yeah.
process. and kind of start to work through it. So having a good therapist on speed dial is also helpful as you
Yes.
start to
No,
notice yourself.
110%. I'd say everybody
Yeah.
over here in my family has one.
Yeah.
Because, but I think you also raised a good point, and I think a lot of women need to hear this when we say it, is all the emotions are acceptable, because
Yes.
especially anger for women is very unacceptable on a lot of levels. And I think maybe it's time for us to get a little more angry about
Yes.
and process through all of that, right?
Yes, I think, I say emotions are shots fired in the dark, right? They are these beautiful opportunities for us to understand what's going on. And sometimes we get caught up in trying to manage the emotion. And I love to kind of flip it on its head and go, well, then, like, what is this emotion trying to tell me? It's there for a reason. So what is it guiding me to? What is it trying to help me to notice? And if I can honor that, the emotion kind of gets worked out for itself.
Right. And it passes. I think
Right.
that's the key, is that some of these feel so big when
Yeah.
especially when they first surface. I imagine you seeing clients, like, it's so like that anger feels like your client said, like, I can't handle it. Put it back in the box.
Right.
Right. But if you can work your way through it, this too shall pass is actually a true sentiment with this, right?
Yes, very true. Yep.
So what
Honestly, like um, I would hand it to men as well, honestly, on some of this, and be like, you read this too, because there's a whole flip
Yes.
side of that when it comes to men and their societal, things that they have to be as well. But what would you say to women about what you want them to step into ultimately after this?
Yeah, I hope that women or whoever reads it, guys, welcome too. I hope that they feel like radical permission to be themselves. And so, on a practical note, I hope that you have a clear sense and you have new language to actually describe who you are. I think that's important. So, I don't want it to just be a vague, like, I feel good about myself. I would love if you read the book and you felt like, oh, I've got some language that I can now use as I walk into new scenarios. I have a new filter for the opportunities that come before me, and I know what to move into. Will it be fulfilling for me or not, based on how I'm wired? Because I finally have identified that. And then just a plan. Like, I don't know. I don't know if people are like me, but I need a vision for my life to keep me going and help me to wake up every morning. And so that's my hope, is that people will really have that.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like that itself is extremely valuable for a woman to have, or anyone to have, because you wake up to well, let me back up a step. I feel like as adults, at some point we think we're locked and loaded and we're done, right?
Right.
We no longer have to have a vision. We no longer have to plan. We're just on autopilot. And that's very empowering to take back that choice, that ability to
Hmm.
choose, like if you go right or left, and that you're not locked in as, you've reached adulthood and you're done.
Yes.
Right? Like you fulfilled, you're good, like stay in the job
Right.
forever.
Yeah.
But I think everything that you've said is just so impactful. And I like the fact that you said, you're not just looking for somebody to be like, oh, I feel better. Great. Super. Like, no, it's much deeper than that. It sounds like it's much bigger than that. And it's life changing,
Yeah.
right? That's
Yeah.
exactly what you've kind of done here. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Any last points that you kind of want to touch on for folks listening? I mean, I'm going to be singing your praises all over everywhere with this book. So what else can you tell folks?
Yeah, I think just that probably the biggest thing I'd want to leave you with is just knowing that you're entitled to a great life, like right now. I think sometimes we wait. I named the book Life Starts Now because I have too many clients, and I know I spent too many years waiting for eventually. Like, maybe things will get to a point where they work out, or I'll feel better, or then I'll make that pivot. And I think we miss out on a lot of joy and satisfaction and meaning in our life, waiting for our eventually life. And so I just want to, invite you, wherever you are and whatever that looks like for you, to take some sort of action now. And, assessment can be action, right? Taking the time to, like,
Yes.
take stock and audit your life, that's action too. But wherever you are, don't hesitate, don't stay stuck, don't wait, because your life starts now. You've got to step into it.
Yeah, and action breeds more action. right? So
Yes.
even if it's like a baby step, that baby step's going to breed another baby step. And then you get that momentum going. And then, you just step in one day, you wake up and it's a completely different life. And you don't even know how you got there because it was so micro stepped right there
Right.
to get to the result. And I think, what I love about everything that you're saying is the permission. It's just the permission that you're granting to women, whether they feel worthy or they don't feel worthy of it or whatever. I think you're just telling them that you are, no matter what, no matter what
Yeah.
level you show up at, you're worthy to start it right now, which is
Yes.
beautiful. So tell people please where they can find you, because you do amazing stuff outside of this book too.
Yeah, and well, you can always find me at my website. So Chanel, spelled just like the perfume, Dokun, Dokun. So go to chaneldokun.com. Head to my website. There's, of course, the book there is a resource and courses, but you can work with me. I love hanging out with people. I don't know if I will be as fantastic of a coach as Michelle has been or continues to be, but I definitely am available if you are asking some questions for that life purpose stuff. And then follow me on Instagram, Chanel.Dokun. I love connecting with real people. Like I like to be a real human being in the world. So if you DM me, I will actually DM you back. There's no assistant that's like checking it or something. I'd love to connect with you.
That's wonderful. Wonderful. And go buy the book. Get it now, folks. Get it, because it's going to be life changing. And I'm just so excited for you and thrilled for you on so many different levels. So thank you so much for being here with me today.
Of course.